At the end of Chapter 3, we saw Driz and Tix come home from the world Hedon. 3 men attack them. They drag Tix through a portal. Driz tries to fight but finds his powers frozen. Distraught, he calls his best friend and business partner, Red. That's where we pick up at now with Chapter 4. Red has come to the rescue.
Chapter 4. Red arrived immediately. His super speed had propelled him across the city in 2 seconds.
"What happened?"
he asked, looking around the parking lot, trying to suss out any threats. I hadn't given him details on the phone. I'd made it clear he needed to get here, but that was it. My voice came out strained. "Tix!" I pointed to Tix's car. Red followed my line of sight. His shoulders slumped. When he turned back to me, there was concern mixed with weariness in his eyes.
"Driz, look, you can't... No one can..."
He paused to wipe a hand down his face.
"Your relationship with Tix isn't real. If he didn't slide away to some strange universe with you today, it's probably because he got held up inside."
Red pointed to Tix's office building. Frustration made his voice hard.
"This isn't an emergency, man. I was about to bang it out with this hot transmuter I picked up."
"He's been kidnapped," I said, before he could say more. He looked skeptical. Because he didn't make it to dinner? Because 3 guys opened a portal, stuck a needle in his neck, and dragged him away. His eyes widened.
"When?"
2 seconds before I called you. One of the guys used a power blocking spell. He made me immobile, Red. I couldn't stop them. Alarm flared in Red's eyes. Someone like that could be unbeatable. If he could influence our powers, he could kill any one of us.
"Have you seen something like that before?"
Red asked me. My mind went back to my childhood. I vaguely remembered a few rumbles, or spells as some called them, that could disable powers. But I'd blocked that side of my life long ago. I couldn't bring it all back at once. I cursed under my breath. I'd created hexes when I was younger. Had I really forgotten them all? I was dusty when it came to breath magic because I hadn't done it in so long. I had a personal book of shadows, but I'd banished it when I'd decided to leave that life behind me. My family had a grimoire. It was filled with family spells, hexes, and rumbles. It was given to each family member the moment we were able to read. I'd banished my copy of that too. Red looked around the parking lot.
"Do you know where they took him?"
I growled, my impatience growing by the second. "He's on the world bound somewhere. How the fuck would I know more than that?" Red's eyes held sympathy.
Okay. Let's just follow the portal and see where it goes."
Angry, fierce, telekinesis power whipped around me, shaking the windows on nearby doors and cars. Red gave me a sympathetic look, but didn't say anything. Tix could be dead by now. We could be chasing a ghost. I swallowed hard and looked at the spot he'd disappeared from. "Let's go." I opened a portal to Boone, using the signal Tix's captives had left behind. We stepped out of the portal into a dark world. Trash littered the streets. The smell of someone smoking a baja was the first scent to hit my nose. Baja was a drug that got you so high you didn't come down for days. It wasn't for the weak of heart. Baja would put you in the hospital if you didn't know how to handle it. I steered away from it, but I didn't judge those who used it. I took a good look at our surroundings. The streets were cracked asphalt, full of potholes and debris. Most of the buildings looked dirty, dingy. The structures were all red brick, yet some had weeds hanging off the side of them. People loitered in different groups and clusters. Some smoked baja, while others held up bottles of Liget. Liget was 100 times more potent than moonshine, which was a popular drink in a different world I visited from time to time. Liget would have you rolling down the street, sucking a goat's hooves, or trying to fuck a cow. That combined with the baja made for a high so powerful, people would sometimes stop breathing. I shook my head. No high was worth your life. Yet these people didn't seem to mind. They threw back bottles of Liget and inhaled smoke with the ease of drinking a glass of water. My eyes landed on a group of 10 guys. They stood in front of a building with the windows knocked out. I stood taller just in case they wanted trouble. I didn't want to fight them, but I would if they attacked. One of the guys caught sight of us and strolled up. He looked to be around 26. I took in his green hair and the jagged scar across his cheek. His aura was intense, ruthless. I had no trouble believing he'd knife me in lieu of saying hello. He took a long puff off his baha.
Looks like you boys wandered into the wrong part of town. We don't do suits and ties here.
My head snapped up. He was a hustler. He assumed we wanted his services for the night. I looked at Red. He watched the hustler, a knowing smirk on his face. My temper flared. This shit wasn't a joke. Red had a hard time staying serious on most days. I knew that, but usually when things mattered, he was right on point. We needed information, not bedroom tricks. Red pulled a handful of money from his pocket. I shot him a look. Was he trying to get us killed, robbed, or both?
You don't do suit and ties. What about money? You do that here?
He stepped closer to the hustler. The guy's eyes lit up. They were an odd shade of silver and blue. His gaze traveled the length of Red's body.
Think you can buy me with a little cash and a pretty smile?
The guy licked his lips.
Gonna have to do better than that. No suits and ties.
We're not wearing suits or ties, I said, done with this whole conversation. Red and I often dressed casually. This guy was a professional hustler, though. He could probably sniff the corporate office. He needed to protect himself on these streets. Assessing a person was probably second nature to him. I was sure he did suits and ties. He was trying to get a reaction out of us. He needed to see what kind of people we were before he offered his services. Red's eyes flickered with amusement. My anger shook the cars on the street. What did he find so funny? Tix's life was at stake. I wanted to wring Red's neck, but I trusted him enough to believe he knew what he was doing. On some level, anyway.
We're looking for a guy. He was probably dragged here by 3 other guys. Did you see anything?
The hustler closed his fingers around Red's hand, taking the money. He gazed intently at Red. Red's lips quirked up into a smile. The hustler ran a thumb over the cash, watching it flutter in front of him. Then he stuck it in his pocket. He held up his hands. A small picture began to form. An image slowly made itself clear. A recreator! Our hustler had the power to recreate. A recreator could show you a scene from minutes ago or maybe even 3,000 years ago. It was like looking at something unfolding on a movie screen. The thing was, recreators couldn't fake images. They read and recreated the energy signals around a certain event. What they showed you was the absolute truth. Recreators of high skill could recreate a scene from hundreds of universes away. Some had to be in the same universe to recreate the scene. They were often hired out by top-tier companies and powerful law firms. Sometimes the police or other law enforcement agencies would call on them for help. Recreators could make a few million in a week. Why was this guy working a street corner? I heard a sound and turned toward the image he'd conjured up. It showed a clear picture of Tix and his attackers. My pulse quickened at the sight, and once again, I prayed Tix was okay. The third guy still had a hold on Tix. The second guy had the first guy in his grip. They immediately opened another portal and disappeared, dragging Tix with them.
Where'd they go?
Red asked the hustler. The dude shrugged.
Speed.
My mouth went dry. Speed was short for Speedsland. It was a place full of water, decks, and warehouses. Millions of warehouses. I flexed my hands. It'd take days to search them all. By then, Tix could be dead. I turned back to the image. The recreator hadn't closed it yet. Tix and the others disappeared through the portal. Once they did, the hustler walked up to it. The signal of the portal hop would still be active for the next couple of seconds. The hustler held out his hand and caught the signal from the portal. I gave him a sharp look. Something in me went cold. Why did this hustler need to know where Tix and the others were going? Did he plan on selling that information to the highest bidder? He'd sold it to us, so maybe so. My jaw tightened. What was this guy's game? Was he a part of this? I didn't know, so I wouldn't throw out accusations. For now, he'd helped us, and I was thankful for that. I nodded at him and then opened a portal to Speed. Red and I stepped through.